Hello, my name is Professor Thomas Hale. I am the course director for the Master of Public Policy program here at the Blavatnik School of Government. Thank you so much for joining us for this question and answer session on the admissions process to the MPP program. We are really excited to have you with us today. I'm going to pass you over in a moment to the fantastic admissions team who are going to answer all the questions you might have. But before I do, I just want to say a few words about what makes the Blavatnik School MPP such a special degree. Of course, there are lots of good MPP programs or similar programs in the world, but what's really distinctive about us is three things. First, it's a program that has purpose at its core. Our motto as a school is a world better led, better served, and better governed. And that mission really infuses everything we do, our research, our engagement with policymakers, and at our heart, the design of the Master in Public Policy program. It's a degree about making the world a better place to live. Secondly, the Blavatnik School is a very global place. And by global, I don't mean floating up in some satellite looking down on the Earth from an ivory tower. I mean a place that's truly deeply embedded in the concerns and the contexts of people all over the world. And that's important not just because we want to be a place where the world is represented, but actually because we think everyone can learn a huge amount by looking at the experiences of their neighbors and countries far from their shores. So it's about learning through our diversity. Finally, the Blavatnik School is a place where purpose and a global experience come together with academic rigor and a firm commitment to practice. So it's not about trying to find what the most cutting-edge theory is for the sake of the cutting-edge theory. It's about using that cutting-edge theory to make a real difference in the world by marrying it in a very practical way to experience on the ground. By combining practitioners who are embedded deep in policymaking processes with cutting-edge academic research, we think we can deliver on the purpose that's at our core. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're looking forward to answering all your questions, and we hope you will think about us as a home for you in the future.
Hello, and welcome to our MPP Admissions Q&A. We're so happy that you made the time in your busy schedules to join us today. My name is Helen. I oversee the communications and events here at the school, and I'll be moderating the session. We have 1 hour to get through as many of your questions as possible. Thank you so much to those of you who submitted the questions in advance. That was super helpful, but please do put questions in the Q&A function, and we'll try and get through as many as we go through the hour. We are sitting in one of the lecture theatres here at the Blavatnik School of Government, and hopefully somewhere where you will be too next year. We want to get you there. So let's kick off. I'm going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves, and then we'll start with questions. So I'll start with Richenda.
Hello, everyone. My name's Richenda, and I'm Director of Admissions here at the school. I have worked here since its inception, and have read, reviewed, and immersed myself in stories from people such as yourself for the past 13 years. And I'm just so excited about what we might receive from you as we recruit for our 14th year. So as Helen says, thank you so much for joining us today.
Beatrice.
Hi, I'm Beatrice. I'm the Senior Admissions Officer here at the school. I think it's my 5th year at the Blavatnik School and in the admissions team. And I kind of support Richenda and the wider admissions committee with, keeping track of all the applications we come in and helping the students and the applicants kind of throughout the process of applying until they arrive on course.
Perfect, thank you so much. So we're going to start our questions now. Now, Richenda, we just heard Tom Hale, our amazing director of the MPP there, talking about what makes the MPP so special. Can you talk about the kinds of students that we've had here over the years?
It's very hard to talk about a particular or typical set of students, because the students that we have had here and will continue to have here are just so amazingly diverse. As Tom said in his opening words, we are a school that is incredibly global, and so we welcome students from all around the world. This year, I think we have students from 63 different countries, which is incredible, and what that does is it means that people can listen to and learn from the perspectives of others from all corners of the globe. But then also sort of, it's as well as the sort of the global diversity that the students bring, they just have such diversity in terms of their interests and their pathways. So we have this year, and in previous years, we have incredible activists working on climate, for example, working on all manner of sort of, policy issues and concerns. We have politicians, we have people who are civil servants right now who are studying at the school, but also people who want to go on to become civil servants. We have award-winning journalists who want to enhance their abilities to really drill down and get the most penetrating stories and coverage to make a difference. We have engineers working on the development of infrastructure and wanting to feed into the policy process to make their projects much more effective for real world change. We have doctors working on public health. So we just have such a range of different students on course now and in our alumni community.
So there's no real typical MPP candidate at all?
No, there's not. As has been said, diversity, it's our USP, diversity in terms of countries, in terms of types of experience, levels of experience. We have a huge span of ages. So we have sort of, younger people in their 20s through to people much more advanced and senior in their careers. So, in the context of all of this diversity, it's often asked of me, so, what sort of unites this diverse group of people? And I think the thing that really does unite our set of MPP students is the fact that everybody in some way is working in the space of public service, wanting to work on issues and projects that make a positive difference in the world, and people who have already demonstrated that they have the ability and drive to make that positive change actually happen. And another thing that we try to look for in our admissions process is we look for people who show evidence that they can listen to others and that they're willing to engage and learn from others, because the MPP student body is one which is a really warm community of people coming together, and so we want to make sure that people are going to be sort of, active listeners and constructive listeners. So to answer your question, nothing typical other than that sort of, public service drive, leadership ability, and desire to really listen to other people's perspectives.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is listening. One of our wonderful professors talks a lot about building unlikely coalitions within the cohort, so that you have people coming from different parts of the world, from different backgrounds, who come together and listen to each other. And I think that's really key here, that we provide that kind of safe space for people to have those sometimes difficult conversations. We had a lot of questions in advance about applying, how you prepare for the application process. So Richenda, if you can just take us through, how can someone sort of best present themselves in their application?
I think before someone even begins their application, it's really important to think, what do you want to do the MPP for? What is the motivation that drives your application? And make that clear as it comes to sort of, putting together your application materials in your personal statement. We now ask for sort of, some very specific questions in the personal statement. And one is, sort of talk to us about why you want to do the MPP. We want to hear from you about how it is going to fit into your pathway, how it fits into what you've done already, and what you envisage it will enable you to do afterwards. So when sort of, preparing for it, really think about that element. And make sure that comes over as you put that into the application materials. The application materials, I mean, what we ask you to submit is a lot, but, so do give yourself time to do justice to yourself. But I think the main thing is just be really true to yourself in the application materials. Make it clear to us what your passions are, what your focus is, what your pathway and future goals are, and make sure that it really does speak to who you are, because I think if you demonstrate that passion, that's going to really make your application stand out from other ones.
Perfect. Part of the application process now involves, and I'm sure you'll have seen this on the website, a reflective essay alongside the personal statement. So can we talk briefly about what we're looking for in those statements?
Of course. So, I've talked a little bit about the motivation for why you want to do the MPP, and that's something that we actually prompt for in the personal statement, as well as asking about future plans, career goals, but also for examples of where you have already had impact in the activities that you've done, but also the different ways in which you have shown leadership and how you have worked to support others around you. So the personal statement, there's prompts on our brilliant website put together by Helen and her team. And it includes a blog post which talks a little bit more, it's written by myself, about how you can really sort of craft that personal statement to your advantage. Secondly, we have the reflective policy essay. Again, there's information about this on our website. My colleague Mary Louise Culpepper, who's the senior admissions advisor at the school, has written a really helpful blog just sort of giving you a little bit of advice about sort of, what to focus on in that. And the reflective policy essay it's something that we introduced a few years ago because we wanted to have a piece of written work that really showcased the policy areas that you're passionate and concerned about. And so we asked for a sort of an outline in about 300 words of a sort of a policy problem or an issue that you have encountered, and to tell us about that so that we can understand sort of, the situation that you're going to be referring to. And then in the remainder of that piece, the 1,200 words, critically discuss what went wrong, why, how, what could have been done to have made better outcomes. So we're looking for a really applied piece of work showing us the sorts of things that you're, the ways that you approach these kinds of challenges, because this is very similar to the sorts of tasks that you would be asked to do once you're on course in the MPP. But as I said, we've got really detailed advice on this on the website, so do take a look. But I think, people who have done these pieces, they actually say that they've really enjoyed writing them, and that they were a little bit daunted at the beginning because they was like, oh, I've got to write a purpose bespoke piece of work. But actually, I really I really was forced to reflect in a way I hadn't reflected on before on a particular thing. So I think just enjoy it as well.
Yeah, it really helps to kind of focus the mind a little bit as well. So, and following on from that, can you give examples of the kinds of evidence needed to demonstrate leadership and impact, and then perhaps also for people who perhaps may think that they have, fewer years of experience in the workplace. So, how easy is it to sort of demonstrate that?
Yeah. So sometimes, people think that leadership is this very high level thing that happens for senior people, and that's not how we understand leadership. We understand leadership as the drive to make a change happen. And that can happen on a university campus, and it can also happen when you're 20 years into your career. But what we want is an example of a situation where you noticed something that wasn't right, or there was an issue that you felt needed more sort of focus and resolve, and that you yourself, potentially with a team of others, identified a constructive way forward and then delivered on that. So I think leadership is more of a sort of, it's a verb here, it's not an end product, it's something. Leadership is something that you do through your drive and determination, and that's what we want to see. And so you don't have to have endless years of experience to demonstrate what we're looking for. It's about thinking, what have I done to make that difference? And of course, that then leads on to impact, and what impact have I had through the actions that I have taken?
Exactly. That's perfect. Thank you so much. We're going to continue just talking about applications, and I'm going to ask Beatrice now to answer a few questions. This might be helpful for some of you if we can highlight some of the kind of common mistakes that we might see on applications and on the personal statement in particular.
Yeah, definitely. It might sound really obvious, but I think the most common mistakes that we see in applications is that people don't read the guidance carefully enough. You have to make sure that you're submitting the right documents. As Richenda has mentioned, we've got specific requirements for the personal statement. There's 4 specific prompts that you need to answer, ideally as separate, clear paragraphs, 1 response per each question. And our reflective policy essay is also quite a specific piece of work. And you also have to submit a short public service essay. I think this is quite different from what most other masters in Oxford or what other MPPs around the world request. So it's easy if you're, applying to more than one thing, which a lot of people do, to get confused or submit the same essay for every program. And sadly, that would not meet our requirements. And even though, of course, we will still assess your application and consider you, it will work against you if you don't submit the correct pieces of work. Again, it might sound very obvious, but things like making sure you're submitting the final version of your essays, that you're sure you're ready to submit before you do. Once you've submitted, you won't be able to change the documents, even if you're submitting, months ahead of the deadline, which is in early January. You have to be careful to submit only when you're ready and that you've read everything really carefully. So I would say take your time and read everything and double check everything, which might sound obvious, but it's definitely one of the biggest mistakes we see.
Yeah, and you have till January the 9th. So hopefully that gives you lots and lots of time to go through all your paperwork that you need and make sure that you've sort of ticked all those boxes. Is there any kind of help and advice that people can have when they're looking to fill out their applications from the team here?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our website is hopefully really helpful and contains all of the information that you need. We've got, of course, general guidance. We've got FAQs. As Richenda's briefly mentioned, we've got blogs as well with specific pieces written to help you in writing some of the essays that you need to submit, but also just in general processes and things about living in Oxford. So loads of guidance there. There's also the university website. So there's a page for our MPP, which has, again, detailed information on how to apply. But if there's anything that you're still not sure about or that you can't find the answer to, you can email us. The admissions team is very happy to respond to any questions. We can't help you make your application, but we can help you with any questions or any queries you might have about the process. And our email, I'm sure, will be advertised at the end, but it's admissions@bsg.ox.ac.uk. So you can just email us and we'll be more than happy to help.
Perfect. So what about people who might have applied in the past and not been successful? Do we advise them to reapply, Richenda?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing for people to remember is that every application round is brand new. We don't refer back to what's come in previous years. We may have memories, but we don't have any paper records. And so you're applying fresh each time. We also can't offer specific feedback on why people were rejected in previous rounds. But what we can do is just give advice on sort of, what we might be looking for in the hope that you can enhance and improve your chances of success this time round. And I think, we're looking for, people who have obviously got sort of, a certain standard of kind of academic ability. And I'm sure we'll talk about the specific sort of, criteria as well. But we're very much looking for people who are on a trajectory and who are constantly working to make that difference and showing that they're kind of, moving up in the spheres that they are operating in. So, you may have been rejected 1, 2, 3 years ago, but what have you done since then? And focus on that and talk to us about how you've grown and developed as somebody who is ready for the MPP now. So I think absolutely, just because you've had a rejection before, please don't think that you can't apply again. We would love to see another application from you. And remember that, we have a huge number of applications each year, and, sort of just with a few more years of experience, actually, this could be the time that sort of, is absolutely perfect for you to come and join us.
Yeah, sometimes it's just the small things that make the difference, but we have had students who haven't been successful and have applied again and then joined us. So never give up, basically. If you're determined to get here, then we will help you. We've had a few questions online, but also previously about funding, because obviously that's a big issue for a lot of us. We're absolutely delighted that almost 90% of our cohort this year, and that's 156 students this year, they received full or partial funding. We have a very large number of scholarships that are available. So we'll talk a bit about the main sources of funding and then how you go about getting your funding. So Beatrice, do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, of course. So as Helen's mentioned, we're really happy that the vast majority of our students this year and every year come with funding. There's about 80% come with scholarships that cover their full fee cost, and then additional ones that come with, partial funding. And we know that that's a huge issue and a huge worry for a lot of you. That being said, at the time of application, we really don't want funding or finances to be a barrier to applying. So of course, it's really good to start thinking about this as early as possible. But at the time of application, you should be focused on your application and you shouldn't worry too much about that. This year, of our 90% that come with funding, about 40% are funded by the University of Oxford, about 20% are funded by us at the school, and another 40% is funded by external scholarships. You'll be happy to know for university scholarships, which are hundreds, if not thousands of scholarships available from the Central University, you don't really need to do anything when you're applying. As long as you apply by the application deadline, which of course you do have to meet, you'll be automatically considered for the vast majority of university scholarships. They don't really require you to do anything beyond applying in order to be considered for anything that you are eligible for. That being said, there's a very small amount of scholarships that do require you to submit additional documents, so complete a form specifically for a scholarship. So I would really recommend that if you're worried about funding, you have a look at the university's funding search tool that they have on their website. And essentially there you can put in your nationality, what program you're applying for, answer a few other questions, and it will show you every single scholarship that they think you're eligible for. So that way you can see whether there's anywhere you might have to submit something extra. One example is the Weidenfeld-Hoffmann Trust Scholarship. And we always have about 5 to 7 students on that scholarship, so it's definitely worth looking at whether you're eligible, and if so, submitting the additional form that they require. In terms of school scholarships, if you get an offer to study with us, we'll be sending you a questionnaire so we can determine which scholarships you're eligible for. And as long as you complete that questionnaire, which we will send you, you'll be automatically considered for all of our awards. As I said, a lot of the students, more than 40%, are, however, funded by external scholarships. So it's always good to explore all opportunities, put yourself out there. We get a lot of people funded by their governments, by their employers, by all kinds of sources. So explore all avenues you can think of. And yeah, put yourself out there, contact as many people as you can. And it's also just worth quickly mentioning the Chevening Scholarship, which again, we always get students funded on. I believe this year we've got 14, so quite a decent number of students funded through that. And that does require an external application completely separate from us at the school or at the university. And the deadline is in early November for that. So if you think you might be interested in the Chevening Scholarship, I would really recommend having a look at that as well.
Yes, I looked up the Chevening just before this because it is such a brilliant scholarship for so many of our candidates, and the deadline is the 5th of November, and it's all on their website, so do take a look.
So lots of sources of funding, lots of information on our website, but also if you get the chance, reach out to our alumni on LinkedIn. If you have contacts with them, a lot of them are really happy to answer any questions. So if you have any concerns or queries about funding, or you want to ask somebody how they went through the process, our alumni are amazing, and we can talk a bit more about them later in the session, but they are always really happy to answer questions. So do reach out to them. And hopefully the information on the website will be helpful to you as well. But, and as Beatrice said, there's always, you can email us at admissions if you have any further queries. I think we're going to move on to talk about the MPP itself. Before we do that, I'm just going to ask Richenda about the MSc, because you will have, and we've had some questions in about the MSc. We also offer an MSc here. So somebody had asked if they should apply at the same time for the MSc as they do for the MPP.
So yes, so our MSc is now in its third year, so it's a much younger programme than our MPP, our Master of Public Policy. And absolutely, you can apply for both the MPP and the MSc at the same time in what is a 1+1 application. And that requires 2 separate applications. So you have to apply for the MPP as a standalone degree, and then you also have to apply for the MSc as a standalone degree. But if we receive applications from both programmes, don't worry, we'll understand that they are for this 1+1 track, so we won't be offering you a spot for both degrees at the same time. And yeah, the MSc is a wonderful opportunity that a small number of our MPP students and alum make use of. It's really sort of been designed as essentially a follow-on to the MPP. The MPP is an incredible degree which is broad, it's rich, it's diverse, it introduces you to such a sweep of different sort of perspectives that can enhance your thinking for understanding and carrying out sort of public policy analysis, and gives you opportunities to sort of dive to a degree into sort of areas that you're really particularly interested in. The MSc is an opportunity to really deep dive into something that you are particularly passionate about. So for people who have the ability to spend 2 years in education and the funding to do that, then it's a wonderful opportunity. It's a much, much smaller programme. It's much more bespoke, more tutorial focused, and just a really nice sort of complement to the MPP. But absolutely you can apply for them at the same time.
Thank you, Richenda. You talked just then about the MPP looking at a really diverse range of policy issues, and we know that people come to the school who have specialised before or want to continue specialising in that area, or want to look into different areas. Can people specialise in particular policy areas throughout the MPP? I mean, we just have 1 year.
Yes, absolutely. But it's worth saying that in the first 2 terms that students are here at the school, everybody follows the same core curriculum, and it's been very carefully thought through and designed. It builds on each other, it complements each other. So we have, for example, a programme in economics for public policy and foundations, which is philosophy and values for public policy. And those 2 are both sort of, 2 courses that you'll take in the first term, which is called Michaelmas. Then in Hillary, which is the second term, you will take courses in law for public policy, political science, thinking in the context of how that relates to public policy, and evidence and how that's useful and critical for public policy. So those are the core subjects that you absolutely must take. Many people are experts in 1 or 2 of those and say, oh, well, I've sort of already done that. Do I need to do it? The answer is yes, absolutely, because this isn't taking a discipline and giving you the sort of, the expert sort of, set of knowledge that a degree based on that particular discipline would do. It's always thinking about applying it to public policy. So there's always something that you can learn, even if you're an economist and you've studied economics for several years, you can still learn something through this programme, but also you can be one of the experts in the room and you can support other people who might be new to the discipline, because you're going to need that when you're doing something like law and you're going to rely on other people. So I think So that's the sort of, that's the core part of the programme, and it comes together so brilliantly when you take your sort of, your sort of exam assessments at the end of those 2 terms. After that point, you can focus and specialise, and we have our option papers. They're not options because you can choose whether or not to take them, but you choose 2 of a range of different courses that are put on in the 3rd term, and they change to a degree every year, but cover a huge range of issues: education, public health, climate, data science, AI, global security, so many different areas that fit with the sort of, the interests of our faculty and some of our trusted practitioners. And then also you do a policy report in the summer, which is focused on a policy question of burning and particular interest to you. So that's where you get the specialism. Also, we've introduced this cluster programme, which is there's 4 clusters this year, one focused on sustainability and climate, another focused on social policy, another focused on global security, and another focused on digital and sort of AI kind of challenges. And those clusters allow interested students, faculty, members of staff at the school to come together and participate, lead events, they might be book reviews, critically interrogating an article, all on a specific sort of, focused kind of area. And that's been a really brilliant addition and success, which have enabled people to do the broad curriculum whilst also focusing as well on the subject that they're most interested in.
Thank you. And it's a lot. It's a lot for a year. It is just 1 year, and it's a lot to take in while you're making friends and building networks with your cohort. Can we talk a bit about what that workload might look like, what somebody could expect, whether that's lots of reading and essays and classes, and what kind of support students can get from tutors, from supervisors, etc.?
There's no denying that the MPP is an incredibly busy and intense programme. It's on so many levels insane what people do in a year, but please rest assured people do it, and they are supported to make sure that they can do it. There is, of course, it's a university programme, there is lots of readings, but in each and every module, you'll be steered towards what the key readings are that you absolutely must do. And so sort of at a minimum, you need to make sure that you have done those and that you're ready and prepared to discuss those in lectures, seminars, and sort of discussions with your fellow classmates outside of the classroom setting. So definitely always do the key readings, which are pinpointed very, very clearly. And then there's additional readings that you can do if you have the time and if you have the specific interest in that particular week's learning. So always lots of reading. Essays, yes, there are a lot of essays, but always with a purpose. And, it's an essay, sort of, you have a seminar leader who can support and help you think about what you want to include in that. You'll have a supervisor, an academic supervisor, and that person is there to support you throughout the entire academic year. They're a member of faculty at the school. I supervise students, and and the point of the supervisor is to have a regular person who checks in on you, who you can go to if you're struggling with anything. They might not have the answers themselves, but they can help you identify where you might get those answers. And the supervisor too can help you work through some of the questions around your policy report that you do in the summer that lots of people are already anxious about, even though it's just at the beginning of the academic year. So I think lots of work, but you are always supported by your supervisor, by faculty here at the school, and also, and crucially, other students on the programme. You're all in it together when you're here, and so yeah.
Exactly, and that we also do, just touching on that, have a wonderful welfare support here at the school. Yeah. We have people in our programmes team who are wonderful, helpful, who will help to signpost help across the university. So there is a really wonderful structure underpinning the school and the university as a whole for people who might need some help. So that is a really important offering, I think, that we want to make sure that every student is aware of.
And can I just add, sort of some people, they see the title, the name Oxford, and they feel really intimidated by it. And just to make it sort of, just to try to emphasise, yes, this is Oxford, but we are so focused on supporting you and making sure that you do well. We're not in any way here to trip people up, but to bring them up and to support them. So please don't be intimidated.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be intimidating. I totally get that.
Yeah.
We're so lucky here at the school because we have such a diverse global community. There are no quotas for people coming from different countries or regions. We only want the best people really here at the school. But yes, it's we have a lot of people who say, oh, I came here and I had imposter syndrome. But after they've been here for a week, they realise what a wonderful place it is and how welcoming and warm it is. So yes, don't please be put off by the Oxford name. And hopefully the fact that you've joined the session means you haven't been put off. So all good. Going back to some of your questions on academic scores. So how important are academic scores to the application? Are there other factors that might hold equal importance?
We get so many questions about this, don't we? So yeah, I mean, I think, we are, as we make clear on our sort of, what we put up on our website, we are looking essentially for at least a 2-1 or its equivalent. And there is information out there, including on the Oxford University website, that helps you to understand those equivalents. But don't worry, we have, we spend a lot of time making sure that we understand those equivalents, so that we are absolutely looking at what you have achieved in your own country. And, usually we are looking for that 2-1 minimum. And of course, we have people who get sort of, really high grades as well. And that's all fantastic. We are looking for people who have significant academic ability. At the same time as looking at sort of, the academic record through your transcripts, we are also, of course, looking at the quality of the written work that you've submitted and what your references say about you. So if you are anxious that you feel that you haven't quite got where we're sort of, pitching our advice in terms of the academics, there are other things that we will look at, and this is all part of what we try to do, which is to form a really holistic view of somebody and their sort of, application. And so, we have a holistic approach with our interpretation of your analytical ability and your intellectual insight, but we also have a holistic view across different criteria. So we're looking, of course, at the academics, but we're also looking at the commitment to public service that's presented in the application, and at the leadership and impact. So again, sort of don't be put off. Put your application in, sell yourself in the best possible way you can, in a way that isn't boasty or braggy, but, that really sort of, just tries to bring out sort of, the essence of who you are. And if you have an academic record that is marginally less than what we would expect, still give it a go, but just think really carefully about the additional information that you are putting into your application.
Perfect, thank you. And just staying on that, Beatrice, is it important to include things like language scores, GRE scores in the application? We always have a few questions about language issues.
Yep. So we do get loads of questions about English language and whether you need to prove your English language ability when you're applying. And hopefully it will be good news for everyone that you don't have to worry about that when you apply. So at the time of application, we won't be looking at your English language. Of course, we will, in terms of your application has to be written in English and has to be good, but we won't be looking at your tests or scores or anything. If you are successful in receiving an offer to join the MPP, it will be a conditional offer, and you'll have a number of conditions, and one of them might be that you have to meet the university's English language requirement. So on the website, if you've had a look, you'll see the university has a standard English language level requirement and a higher English language level requirement. And for the MPP, if you aren't a UKVI national, so if you aren't a national and resident in one of the countries that the UK considers has English as its first language to a degree that is sufficient for visa purposes, you will need to probably get either a TOEFL or an IELTS test. I won't try to remember off the top of my head what the specific scores are needed because I don't want to give you the wrong information, and it is all on the website. But if you're not from one of those UKVI countries, you might need to do an English language test, but you don't need to worry about it at application. So definitely, I think, until the deadline in early January, just focus on completing your application, submitting the best application you can, and then after that, you can start thinking about the English language requirements and whether you may or may not need an English language test.
Great, thanks, Beatrice. We'll talk a little bit now about life in Oxford. Some of you, many of you may not have been to Oxford before. And it's kind of useful just, I think, to talk about, obviously, it's a really busy year, lots of class requirements, but how you can sort of stay on top of that, but also have a work-life balance as well. So Beatrice, do you have any tips for people who are thinking about the sort of pressures of work, but also wanting to enjoy what Oxford has to offer?
Definitely. But just before that, I realized I didn't respond to the other part of your previous question on things like GRE and other standardized tests, because I know it's another thing that a lot of people ask about. You don't need to have any GRE, LSATs, or any kind of standardized test like that. If you do have one that you've taken for other reasons and you want to submit it in your application because you think your results look really good, that's fine. It can be included, but it's not required. It's not an essential part, and you won't be kind of at a disadvantage if you've not done those tests. So that's not needed, but you can add it if you want. In terms of living in Oxford and what it's like and keeping on top of work and making the most of your year here, I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that our course directors give is making sure you have clear priorities, both within the school, but within the university, and then Oxford as a city itself. And then for those of you that have never been in the UK, there's going to be so many opportunities, so many events, so many things that you can do. And sadly, you won't be able to do all of it. So it's good to have clear priorities on what you're interested in, what you want to take part in. It's fine if those priorities shift, but don't stretch yourself out too thin, is something that Tom Hale has said a lot to our new students, and kind of pick your battles in a way. So of course you'll want to, experience Oxford, experience student life, and there's always so many options and so much diversity of things to do, but you'll have to really pinpoint what it is that you want to invest your time in. Of course, the MPP, as we've said, is an intensive program. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of lectures, there's a lot of independent reading, but there definitely is time to have a social life and to enjoy the student life. There's, of course, endless kind of societies, there's endless sports clubs, there's endless cultural opportunities and events, whether that's within the school or wider Oxford, wider university. I'm also always really impressed with the amount of things that are student-led within our department. So if you want to do something and you don't see it, you don't know where that's available, you can just start it yourself with your fellow students on the MPP. I think almost every year there's an MPP student band that does kind of concerts within the school. There's often been MPP student podcasts as well, just loads of opportunities of things to do, but you kind of have to know which ones it is that you want to make time for and focus on those, I think.
Exactly. And I think if you get a chance to, well, hopefully you are following us on Instagram, then you'll be able to see for yourselves. We have lots of student takeovers of our Instagram account, So you'll be able to see for yourself what they get up to. They have a lot of social events. I mean, obviously we're in week 2 of teaching, I think, at the beginning of the term. So it's early days, but you'll be able to see what they get up to in Oxford and how much they enjoy it. One of the things that you will see also if you follow us on Instagram is where they all live. They all live in colleges, which is a little alien to some of us who perhaps didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge. So Beatrice, can you just give us kind of an overview of how that works, that students stay in different colleges but come here for their classes?
Yeah, so the college system I personally find endlessly confusing, even though I've been in Oxford for a number of years. So please don't be worried if you're also slightly confused by it. In terms of the practical side of things, when you're applying, you can put in a college preference if there's a specific college that you really want to be assigned to, but you don't have to, and it won't affect your likelihood of getting into the MPP. The way it works is that we will assess your application and decide whether you get an offer on our program or not. And then everyone that gets an offer on the MPP and everyone that becomes a student will get assigned to one college. I think sometimes people get a little bit confused because at undergrad and at postgrad, it's a little bit different. All of the teaching takes place in the school as a department. the college for postgraduate students is more of an extra resource of community, of facilities, of infrastructure. A lot of pastoral care is available, and that way you also get in touch with people that aren't doing the MPP and aren't at the Blavatnik School of Government. So it's just an extra source of, as I say, resources, support, community. The colleges are all hugely different. They're all really great, but they've got different kind of styles to them. You get, of course, your typical Oxford Harry Potter type college, and some people really want to have that experience. Then you get more modern colleges. Some of them are exclusively for graduate students, and that's a little bit of a different experience, but sometimes some of our potentially more mature, older students prefer that rather than being surrounded by undergraduate students. So they're all great, but they're all very different. And as I say, you can, if you have a preference, put that in your application, and that means that college will consider you first and foremost. But if you don't have a preference, or if you don't want to think about it, that's totally fine. You can just leave that blank and you will be assigned to a college as well.
Great. You talked there about, or you mentioned we have slightly older students. Can students bring their families with them? What support is there for families if students have children or partners?
Yep. So sadly, there's been a change to UK kind of government policies on this. I think since this year's the first year, that students that are coming on a student visa are not able to bring dependents unless a specific set of circumstances. So if you have a government-funded scholarship, whether that's your local government or whether that's Achievement Scholarship, you are exempt from this and you are able to bring dependents. But otherwise, for taught degrees like our MPP and like our MSc, you won't typically be allowed to. This is, we know, a source of concern for a lot of our students that do want to come with families or with partners. And sadly, it's something that we've been, monitoring, but that is a UK kind of wide policy. That being said, we do have loads of support, both within the school, the university as a whole, where that's because you have brought your family and you need help with housing or with school for children or things like that. And we also have support available if you're struggling after not being able to bring your family. If you have to leave someone behind, it can make getting into the MPP a lot harder. So as we've mentioned before, within the school, we have a welfare team. Within the college, there's also a lot of pastoral care available. And then university-wide, there's a lot of resources. So we know that this is a difficult situation, and a lot of people have to make difficult decisions around that. But whichever way you end up being affected by this, there is a lot of support available to hopefully make the experience as easy as possible.
Yeah. Thank you.
And can I just add, and actually we probably have similar numbers of people that have come with their families as people who have come without their families. And so don't feel that sort of, whatever the end result, if you get a place on the programme and then choose to come, don't feel that you'll be alone, whichever pathway you do. But yeah, as Beatrice has said, sort of get applying to government scholarships, because it's a really good way of keeping doors open for you.
Definitely. Thank you for that. So just thinking about sort of moving on a year later, you've done your MPP, you're about to go to your graduation ball and celebrate with all your cohort. What kind of careers advice and support does the school provide those looking for new roles, at the end of their studies, or learning new skills to help them with their future careers? What kind of things do the school support students with?
So the school has an incredible sort of array of support around careers and next steps. First up, and this isn't formal, is if you're selected onto the programme, you will be joining a group of people who are phenomenal, and they are connected all around the world with really exciting roles, jobs, people. And so actually the peers that you are studying alongside with are just amazing resources who can give you ideas, make introductions. But then we have a sort of, a very specific team that also looks after careers and next steps. and they're amazing. And from the get-go, so from the minute that you come and join the MPP, you will be participating in seminars and sessions with them where they will be helping you to really make sure that your CV, for example, is doing everything it can to succinctly sell who you are. They will be helping you to think about sort of, making tentative sort of, introductions of yourself to prospective employers. They will be alerting you to opportunities that come our way, because the school really wants to, at application stage, we're looking for people who are committed to public service and who are focused on that pathway. And then at the school, when you're here, we want to make sure that we can do all that we can to keep you in those public service related roles. So our careers team are amazing. They offer huge amounts of support. And also in the context of the policy report that you'll do at the end of the year, increasingly we ask students to find their own placements, because our careers team are so on it and brilliant that actually it's part of that sort of, that process about sort of, being able to proactively go out and find things during and after the MPP programme. You also have the alumni community who you become part of, which you would become part of. Again, another source of brilliant people to communicate and potentially introduce you to others through. So lots going on. Oh, and also just to say, sort of, as well as the sort of all of that, we have, as part of the MPP, professional skills. We have so many talks from incredible people who are doing incredible things all around the world. So I think, there's always opportunities to reach out to people, to speak to people. It's really a sort of, a hub of so much activity. Yeah. So there's lots and lots of support for this.
Lots of support. And as Richenda mentioned, the events that we run in the school, Beatrice mentioned that a lot of the students run their own events, student-led events throughout the year, and we support them with that. But the school itself runs many, many events through the year. For example, if you look on our events page on our website, we have, I think in the next couple of weeks, 2 book talks, 1 workshop, somebody coming in for a conversation about a particular issue. We have lectures coming up on global law. So much going on in the school. And we also have exclusive events just for the students, where we bring in world leaders, really senior officials from across the world, where students have the opportunity to question them. So learn from them. Learn about the mistakes that they made when they were building their careers, learn how they dealt with international negotiations, things like that. So huge opportunities to learn from the people that come into the school and engage with on a one-to-one basis. So yeah, we're really happy to be able to provide that for you. Obviously it's fitting it into everything else that you're doing, but we try and make sure that there's lots of room for you to do that. Richenda, you also mentioned, sorry, just going back to the policy report in the summer. Can we talk about maybe a few examples of the kinds of policy reports that people have done? I mean, you might be able to see as well, we did a series of takeovers on our Instagram over the summer from students who had gone to the UN. They'd gone all over the world doing their placements to then come up with their policy reports. So do you want to say a few words about that?
Of course. So I think the policy report is the sort of the capstone of the Master of Public Policy. And it's the moment where you get to take all of the incredible things that you've been learning about through the MPP. It's the moment where you can take that and really identify and work on a policy question that is of burning interest to you. And that policy question that you come up with, it will be something that you discuss a lot with your peers, but also your supervisor. And, and in order to make that sort of, in order to get to sort of, addressing that policy question, we get students to do a summer placement in an organisation of your choice that can really help you answer that policy question that you have. And so I think the placement that you have will be dictated by what your interest is, and then once you've sort of, you know, really identified what you want to focus on, then you can start reaching out to different organisations. You've mentioned the UN, the World Bank, the OECD. We have people going into various government departments in the UK, in other departments, or in sort of, you know, the NGO sector, for example. So, you know, we might have someone working on child poverty and connecting with an NGO focused on that, either in the UK or abroad. So, you know, there are so many examples, and, you know, and our website showcases some of those rich examples with pictures, and it all brings it to life. But I think, you know, it really is, it's whatever you want it to be, as long as your supervisor is happy with your policy question, then, you know, it's your decision about where you take your placement. And it's just an incredible opportunity at the end of the programme where students are just doing exactly what they want to do. And for some people, that placement can then become the launch pad for their next role in public service. So it's something that we support you with thoroughly, and we get as excited as you do about what you end up doing.
And we talked about outreach, so it's reaching out to find that placement. And this year we have had the very good fortune of a lot of our alumni helping our students find those placements. So again, our alumni are such an important, they play such an important role in the community here at the school. And Beatrice, I don't know if you want to say a few words about the alumni community and how important they are as this network that they continue their relationship with the school. They sort of never leave the school, really.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think I was surprised when I started working here that a lot of the biggest and most supportive piece of feedback that our students have when they finish is how much they enjoyed meeting everyone on the program and the connections that they make between each other. That's because a lot of our emphasis is, of course, you come to Oxford to learn from our, you know, faculty, our lecturers, but also to learn from each other and to foster those, I think you mentioned unlikely coalitions and those, you know, sources of support from around the world. And not only will you get to know all of your fellow classmates, but you will also get opportunities to get to know some of our alumni communities. And a lot of our alumni, whether they're from the same background as you or whether they're completely different backgrounds, they get involved in endless things at the school. We recently, for our new students, had an event where I think 4 or 5 of our alumni came and talked to them a little bit about, you know, what it was like being a student and finishing and what their tips and advices are. They also often act as mentors to our students. As you've mentioned, they help with our policy projects in the summer, finding placements and things. So there's endless opportunities for them to be involved and for you to interact with them. And again, to keep growing that kind of sense of community and connections around the world that you never know when, you know, will come in handy and when will be relevant. So it's definitely one of these things where you can make the most of it as much as you want to be involved. And yeah, there's just, I don't know how many alumni we have now, but a huge number of them, and it's all around the world, so yeah.
Yeah, it must be about, I don't know, 1,500 now. And they are an amazing community, and they self-organise. We have an amazing, I think they're called the Climate Warriors, our alum who are interested in or work in the climate field. So lots of opportunities to continue those relationships and rely and help each other. It's a lovely community here at the school, and we are so grateful to our alumni. As I said before, reach out to them if you have any questions. If you find them on LinkedIn, reach out about applying, about any of the process of that, or about just coming to the school. I am conscious that we are almost out of time. Before we go, I'm going to ask Beatrice and Rachunda to offer their top tips, their final kind of top tips for applying for the MPP. So Beatrice, do you want to go first?
Yep. So I think, again, a basic one that might sound obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people aren't careful enough. It's just to read the guidance, take your time. Of course, we encourage everyone to apply as early as possible. Don't leave it to the last minute because anything can go wrong. And if you're past the deadline, you won't be able to submit your application. So submit early, but submit once you're ready, once you're 100% sure that you're happy with everything. Once you've submitted it, you won't be able to change the documents that you've put in your application. So take your time, read carefully, make sure you're uploading all of the right things, and only submit once you're ready. And yeah, I think feel free to email us if you have any questions. If you're not sure about anything, just take your time, look for the answers, get in touch with us if you're not sure about anything.
So me.
Yes.
So much that I could say, but I think the main thing I want to just end on really is thank you for joining us today, and thank you for showing your interest. And in terms of putting together an application for our programme, which we hope we've inspired and excited you about, believe in yourself. We have the most incredible applications, and they're incredible because we read about people's stories, the things that have happened in their life to motivate them to do the things that they have done and to do what we think are incredible achievements. And just, we are reading with such an interested eye, and we really care about getting an incredible class together that is reflective of a huge array of interests, experiences, and people from all around the world. So tell us your stories and believe that actually your application could result in an offer, because we're excited to be speaking to so many of you today, and we cannot wait to read your applications. So put them in and come and join the next class in this lecture theatre.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So just to wrap up, a huge thank you for joining us. It's been lovely for us to spend this hour just in conversation, chatting about the MPP. As you can probably tell, we're quite passionate about it. The recording of this will be on YouTube, so on our YouTube page. So do have a look back if there's anything you think you missed. As we've said, do email the admissions email address if you have any questions. And then we are planning another Q&A in November, but with current students, so they can talk about what it's like, what their application experience was, what it's like being at the school. So keep an eye on our social media for that. But that's it for me to say thank you so much. We hope to see your applications in January. Thank you for your time, and yeah, hopefully you'll be in this lecture theatre next year. Thanks again. Bye-bye.